You're listening to Witch Wednesdays, a semi-weekly podcast source for all things witchcraft in the modern world. Join your host, Steph, on Wednesday mornings to chat about seasons, Sabbats, and all new witchcraft topics to help you make your life more magical. Welcome back to Witch Wednesdays. I'm Steph, and I have a guest here with me today, a debut author, and we are going to be chatting about her new book, which at the time of recording just came out yesterday, and hopefully this episode is going to be up very soon for you to listen to. So before we get into all that, I'm going to turn it over to her so she can introduce herself and let you know where you can find her online.
Hi, thanks so much for the lovely introduction. Yes, I am Rosalind Moody. I am author of The Spark, Sex, Love and Spirituality in a Toxic Dating World. It's my memoir/manual on going from chaos dating on the dating apps to conscious dating in an awakened world. So you can find me on Instagram at Rosalind Moody or rosalindmoody.com, and can't wait to see you there.
I love the concept of chaos dating. That's just such a
Yeah.
great term for it.
Thank you. Yeah.
So what was your journey like to decide to even create a book about this? Because it's kind of a interesting subject to want to like reveal that much of your life and get like so
Mm.
personal in your first book. How did you even decide to go that route?
Yeah, it's personal. I get really deep. I've always been a bit of an oversharer, but I think this really was needed for the world because since I've been talking to friends about it, they're just all over it. I can't wait for people to dig into this. So it actually started as a journal. So it was never ever meant to become a book. Like I never wanted to, get revenge or call out anyone on their behavior when I've been dating them or if they've ghosted me or whatever. This is not about revenge. This is about serving people who have been there and done that and need a bit of guidance on how they can emerge out of it with their spark still intact. So really it started as a journal and Word documents. I was tapping away on my laptop. I was coming away from these dates. Nothing too kind of intense in terms of length of me seeing them in kind of first, second, third dates maybe. And I just didn't know how I felt. And I think it was Nora Ephron who said, I don't know how I feel about things until I write about them. And I feel totally the same. Like I need to reflect using something. So either that's a friend or it's a piece of paper. And it was about a year or so of journaling like this and kind of reading things back. Not that you always have to read your journals back, by the way, but I chose to. And thinking, oh, I like that sentence and I like that analogy. And this could maybe help someone because it's helping me just reading myself back from a year ago or so. So, yeah, it's coming from a place of service very much.
And who would be the intended audience to best receive your book?
Yeah, that's a good question because I intended this to be for people who are my age when I wrote the journal notes, which was about mid-20s, between about 25 and 30. But since talking to my team and bringing the book out there, it really will span generations because it will be for parents maybe in Gen X that want to know what their adult kids are up against in the dating world and in the general wide world where you're trying to become who you actually meant to be and figure out what your purpose is in this universe. So it will be for both those generations and even the university age or college age lot from, 16 and upwards. They will learn a lot from this book. They will see what's to come and how to guard their souls against the barrage of potentially toxic people they might meet or dates they might go on and just learn to really keep centered and grounded. So I really hope people from different backgrounds can get something from it because it is universal to be able to keep your spark alive in a world that sometimes feels like it wants to rip you apart a bit.
I agree completely. I am older than your demographic and I'm already married. And still, when I was reading this, it was like coming back to things that I experienced when I was younger. And I was like, oh man, I think it's only gotten worse, maybe
Oh
since then.
no.
with like the advent of dating apps because I was with my husband before the advent of dating apps.
Oh, you're so lucky.
Yeah, we are really lucky about that. But just reading that, like, there's just so many things that are universal to the experience of dating that I was like, oh, I remember some of these things. And I'm glad that I don't have to go through that again. But there is so much great information in your book still about like self-confidence that it really can apply to any age. And I love the way that you phrase that of like keeping your spark because it absolutely, the world never tries to stop ripping that away from you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's not just for single people either. It is for people who have been there, done that, done the dating and can look back nostalgically and or might still have self-work to do, even in relationships. Like our work is never done. We're always self-developing, always trying to help ourselves grow. And spirituality can really help us grow. And I mean, being single, you really grow fast. If you take the lessons that come your way in terms of dating and the mirrors that are held up to you in terms of the guys that you're dating or the girls that you're dating, you can really grow fast. You can be on a fast track of growth. So I really hope a lot of people, like you say, can get something from this and and become who they're really meant to be.
And I think it's great to be able to pass along to my friends because I do still have friends that are single, and one in particular that has just in the last year been like deleted all the dating apps and got so over that whole scene.
Mm.
And she's like, "But I don't want to be single." I'm like, "You know what? I have a book for you."
Oh, amazing. Yeah, that's exactly the vibe I want. Yeah, absolutely. Pass it on.
So, how did you decide to incorporate so much spirituality into what you write about? How did that become such a big
Mm.
part of your book?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess this could have been a straight kind of dating book, kind of a Bridget Jones just dating single life manual, but the spirituality really was important for me to bring in because I started on a spiritual journey completely by accident, probably like a lot of your listeners did, in that spirituality found them rather than the other way around. And it could be a traumatic incident, it could be losing a loved one. For me, it was being in a narcissistic relationship at age 22 where spirituality kind of became on my radar and it really found me. And then when I was on my gap year or gap year and a half, because it was an extended trip because I just didn't want to come home, I had all of these experiences. Like I meditated for 10 days at a monastery in northern Thailand, and I went to see a healer in Bali and had my eat, pray, love moment. And all of it's in the book of how healers and Reiki and crystals and meditation and everything found me and basically saved me because at some points I was miserable and I was so ungrounded. My root chakra, which is the chakra right at the bottom that keeps us very anchored to the universe and to the ground, it was really out of whack. So spirituality was an essential part of this book to really help the self-growth that I hope the readers will find.
And the way that you set that up in the different parts is brilliant. It's such a great way to
Thank
outline
you.
a book and like have the chapters. And for listeners, it is like based on the chakras going up from like root to crown. And I was like, oh, this, I like it, saw the contents. I was like, oh, this is going to be fun.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, exactly. It's an easy structure to follow. I do not want anyone to be overwhelmed or alienated by the spiritual structure or language. Like it is very much an inclusive, safe space for you to feel your feelings in and to follow through. And you've got my story there as a kind of backbone to the book. So whatever you've gone through, I have been there too. You're not alone in this. So I really wanted people to lean into the spirituality, even if they don't count themselves as spiritual.
Yeah, and there's so many different levels of spiritual rituals and exercises that you have in there that correspond to self-growth and like dating. I mean, you have astrology and birth chart,
Mm.
you have like creating an energy shield, and I'm like, oh, all of these things are like so helpful along the journey, and it's just a nice way to see how that can relate specifically to dating and like growing as a person.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's essential because as soon as I found Reiki and I discovered those seven energy centers on our energy body from the root right to the crown, which to me, when I found it, sounded so fabulous. Like there's such a thing as a crown chakra. Like that's so sassy. I love it. So to have these seven chakras to dating, I mean, just for instance, like chapter 4 is one of my favorite chapters because it's called Chaos Dating. And then and not to ruin the plot or anything, but chapter 6 is conscious dating. So can you see how, and chapter 4 is heart chakra and chapter 6 is third eye chakra. So can you see the progress I made in chapter 5 in throat chakra, that I was able to go from chaos dating to conscious dating in a matter of 2 chapters?
Yes, and it's absolutely brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah, so a lot can be achieved while following the structure, I believe.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I think that, it's a great dating book and memoir, but really going to appeal to, people who are on their own spiritual path and just to see how much that all influences each other and
Hmm.
how that can help you grow as a person. Because I think we can sometimes carpet carp why can't I not speak this morning? It's a little early here. I know it's 2 o'clock where you are.
Oh, of
Um,
course it is. Yeah, of course. Good morning.
um, compartmentalize different areas of our lives. And that maybe we're like working on like a witchcraft spiritual journey, and that's one portion, and we're keeping it separate from what we're doing in the dating life. But really,
Mm.
it's mixing all of those things together that gives you a more complete picture and allows you to grow not just in your spiritual journey and your witchcraft practice, but to be able to apply that and like grow in the dating world as well.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're so right. It's when we actually melt the two together that we can create magic. I didn't know that spirituality could have anything to do with dating and vice versa. Like I had absolutely no idea the intuitive practice that I'd learned on my travels would come in handy with dating and going on first dates and thinking, is this guy telling me the truth here? Is he actually single? Does he actually mean the things he says he means? So it really was an awakening moment when I started using the two together and with witchcraft as well, and the healing practices and rituals that I would do, or the manifestation practices I would do. It really all came together.
And I know you have a lot of exercises and rituals in here to be able to do on your own, like the energy and the journaling and all that. But you
Hmm.
do also have something that I wanted to touch on and ask your opinion about, is psychic readings and
Oh, yes.
getting readings from somebody else, because I think that you can get psychic readings for anything, but I think that love readings tend to be like at the top of like the psychic's bread and butter.
Mm,
Everybody wants to go for getting their love life figured out by a psychic. And I would just love
mm.
to chat about that, about what it's like to even go for a reading and how you can even know that you're going to like a real psychic or what you should watch out for.
Oh yeah, that's a great question. There is definitely guidance in the book about that because even I, before I really knew I was on a spiritual journey, I had kind of defenses. I think we go into a psychic reading, even if we're not quite a believer yet, we can kind of have our back up a little bit and be a bit like, well, what are you going to say that's going to prove me wrong? And I know a lot of my friends and their husbands or boyfriends are like that. But really, if you go in with an open mind, you can be wowed and floored. Like in lockdown, I broadcast on my Instagram live a psychic mediumship reading, and wow, it was just you could see like the tears in my eyes, and people were watching it blown away. So I would say go in with an open mind and don't expect to come out with an exact life plan because you want the people in spirit that are guiding you to come forward and say what they have to say rather than kind of being shy rather than shying away. And the psychic medium, I mean, you need to follow your intuition with who you're going to book because you need to make sure that they're professional. And I know a lot of industries have a lot of fraud, but unfairly, spirituality industry gets painted with a bad brush. There are some amazing psychic mediums out there. You just have to go and find them. So ask your friends of their recommendations, and you'll be surprised on who your friends actually have psychic readings that you would never have realized that they had. A lot of guy friends that I've got have had psychic readings, and but they wouldn't actually come forth and spark up a conversation about it. So ask your friends, make sure that they're professional in terms of the kind of the copy on their website and the design. And if it's going to be a phone line, make sure you've read the fine print. But I would say definitely start with going to an event like your local mind, body, spirit retreat or festival. And I mean, we have plenty here in the UK. So have a Google on your local MBS fairs and see what people's energies are like. Because I find that when you go for a psychic reading, you've really got to mesh with them as if a friend. If you don't have a good vibe with them, then just walk on, and the messages you're meant to get from spirit will come through to you with the person who it's meant to. Did that answer your question? Hopefully.
It did, absolutely. I think that's excellent advice because it can be tough to find somebody that you trust. And I think a lot
Mm,
of people go into that with a dose of skepticism. But,
mm,
the people who are listening to this podcast are like, yes, give me all of the psychic readings. I want to go to everybody. So
yeah.
that's the right audience for that. But I am surprised that you had as many guy friends as you did, because you're right that I've had a few and they just don't admit it.
Right, exactly. But once you get them talking, they will not shut up.
Yeah. I'm like, that it's a good time. Like you obviously got some good answers from it, but yeah, until you bring it up in conversation, they won't admit
Mm,
that they
exactly.
went.
Yeah. So I think it's time for some guys to step out the spiritual closet, the safe space, and we're all healing here. So yeah, come on out.
Have you been on any dates where you brought up the spirituality or like more woo-woo side of things and gotten a either positive or negative response?
Oh, I love that question. Yeah, I normally do. I don't lead with it. I try and keep that kind of thing to come out as it's meant to. Which is it's hard in dating app speak when everyone's just asking you what you do for a living and you don't always want to say because you want to. I mean, the divine feminine is about mystery, right? It's not about playing all your cards at once. So when it does come out on a date, normally I get met with a really positive response and like oh cool, like oh yeah, my nan was psychic, or oh yeah, I've had a psychic reading and I really liked it. I haven't been unfortunate enough to reveal that side of myself on a first date, and the guy's like, "Oh, I don't believe in that at all," and then it just goes and fails as a date. Like
Oh yeah.
normally, I've sussed it out enough for the guy to be open-minded, and that's a very important aspect in a partner, and for them to be open-minded, even if they don't believe it themselves. Like they can have things that I'm not so fussed about. So as long as there's respect both ways. I was once on a date with a guy. This was years ago. This is back in chaos dating chapter. Chapter 4 is a hoot. For whoever reads it, I really want to know what you think. But anyway, chapter 4, it didn't make it into the book, but I was on a date, a daytime date with a guy who was more into spirituality than I was. And he was carrying crystals in his pockets. And he was really, really sweet. But I had made a mistake in the fact that all we'd actually talked about on the app thread was spirituality. So I was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to go and this could be the one because we always think this could be the one because we're optimistic people. But I rocked up on the date and it turned out spirituality was the only thing we had in common. We had nothing else in common. We were not on the same level,
Oh
and
no.
it was not worth continuing. And back in that time, this just shows how chaotic I was. I actually made that's the only date I've ever had where I've made an excuse and left because I could not see this going anywhere past
Oh.
a chat about crystals. That's the only thing we had to talk about. So yeah, bless him. The awakened me, the conscious data in me now would absolutely tackle that a different way. Or actually not even go on the date to begin with because I would have sussed in the chat that it was not a goer.
Oh, that's rough. Yeah. You get so
Yeah.
excited that they're like, oh, this is like one thing that I love so much and just my
Yeah.
life. And, they share that.
Yeah. I got carried away. Yep.
Yeah, I have some friends, not really anymore. They've accepted it, but I have some friends that were like, no, I really don't like believe in that stuff. Like guys especially would be like, no, I don't
Yeah.
think so. And I'm in Chicago and we're, Cubs fans here and they go to the
Oh,
Cubs
cool.
game and during the seventh inning stretch, everybody turns their baseball caps backwards and I'm like, you're telling me you don't believe in
Oh
anything?
my God, that's so superstitious. I love it.
I'm like, get out of here. Like, I'm not even listening to you with your inside out jerseys and your backwards hats and you're gonna like do your little rituals during, halftime during football games. Like, don't even. I'm not listening to you. You absolutely believe in all of this. Get out of here.
Does it work for them? Does it
They
help?
se- they seem to think so. I don't know. I mean, the Cubs have won in recent history, but for a long time, we were terrible. So no, it was like no,
Uh,
none of this
mhm.
is working. But yeah, I told them all most of them that I'm like this is all witchcraft. Everything that you're doing here, all of these
Mhm.
superstitions are all witchcraft and magic, and they're like, oh, okay, well then. I'm like, yeah, that's
Yeah. Yeah, you're practicing witchcraft, guys. Come on. Like,
you
believe in
believe
it.
it. You believe in it. Look at you. Look at all these things you're doing. So
Yeah,
you
look at
just
that
have to,
backward cap.
yeah, you just have to, show them their ways, and then they're
Yeah,
open.
it's when you point out things like Christmas was originally pagan, and the only reason we have Christmas trees is because pagans wanted to beckon in an abundant spring and bring in fir branches from the garden, and that's why we have Christmas trees inside. And Easter
Exactly.
is built around full moons, and when you start pointing those things out, and also birthday cakes, when you blow out candles on a birthday cake and make a wish, that is witchcraft in action. We've been doing it since we could blow candles.
Exactly. We encourage little children to do it every
Right,
year, all year long. So, yeah.
exactly.
Which that it's everywhere. The witchcraft, the spirituality, the magic is everywhere. You just have to point it
Hmm.
out to people.
Yeah, it really is. Like all the sacred geometry as well. Like the universe is built on sacred energy, and when people start opening their eyes, I believe in generations to come. I mean, it's starting with our generation. It started generations way back, and it just hasn't hit the mainstream. But now it's starting to kind of curve into the mainstream. Like, it's just so exciting to watch.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
In terms of your spirituality and growth and cycle that you're on,
Hmm.
is there anything that you do now regularly in your day-to-day life, any sort of spiritual practices that are particularly different or that you did not do while you were cake
Mm.
stating?
Mm. Yeah, there's quite a few things. They're so part of my everyday now that I have to really consciously think what it is that I do because they're so built into my habit now.
Oh, that's how I am too.
Um,
When somebody asks me that question, I'm like, wait, I need to go back and think about it because
yeah,
you don't think about your habits that much.
no, you don't. And writing this book was really reflective for me to be like, oh, how did I used to do my day to day? What did my habits used to be? And now that I don't do them, how do I feel? So one big thing is kind of just cycling with the moon, like with my periods and things like that, and the stages in between the monthly cycle and how amazing I feel and tuning that to nature. I'm a lot more aware. So awareness is a big part of my day to day. Um, in terms of going to bed, my going to bed ritual used to be swiping on the apps, which is what a lot of people do. So I call 11 p.m. Tindering hour. I know a lot of people know 11 p.m. is kind of witching hour. And my little familiar, my little cat Tabitha, starts running around, pelting around the living room at 11 p.m. So 11 p.m. is a very sacred time of night. It's my bedtime. It's when people start going on the apps and replying to messages and swiping away. But I use my 11 p.m.s differently now. I use it to pay gratitude. I do kind of a gratitude game where I go through the alphabet and what am I grateful for today, starting with A or B and C. And it could be really tiny things, but anything that made a positive difference to my day. Just paying attention to the minuscule things that changed and made my vibration higher that day, I can pay gratitude to. A lot of mirror affirmations as well, where I'm putting my essential oils on my face before I go to sleep. Meditation. There are some fruitier meditation rituals in the book that I won't say now, but really you've got to be alone, if you know what I mean, to use them. And yeah, there's a lot of little witchy things that I do. I mean, yeah, gratitude, meditation, mindfulness, and mirror affirmations, talking to the universe, it's always listening. We feel it like idiots talking to ourselves, but we're never just talking to ourselves. We're talking to the spirit and the universe and putting our intentions out there. And any time I get to shed a habit and set a new intention, whether that's, in bulk or summer solstice or just a Monday morning because it's a fresh week, then I get to shed a habit and redesign my life just like nature is constantly recycling.
I love all of those practices. And I agree with you that I love that like reset. And I love how many opportunities nature gives us because sometimes we get stuck in that, first of the month. And I'm like, no, you got
Mm.
Mondays, you got weekends, you got
Mm-hmm.
seasonal cycles, you got moon cycles. You can reset every single day.
Exactly. You can constantly be up leveling. You can constantly be. And on my travels, I when I traveled through Southeast Asia, I had our normal New Year celebration on the 1st of January in Sydney. But then as I traveled through to Bali, they had New Year in March. So I was able to set a New Year intention resolution in March. And then I was in Thailand in April and they had New Year in April. So I got to set a New Year's resolution then. So I had like 3 New Years in the space of 4 months. And I was just constantly setting new manifestations and intentions. And yeah, and I think once I got home and I landed the job of my dreams, I have some of that to thank.
I love that. 4 different New Years. What a great time.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very cool party period.
And obviously a very successful one for you.
Yeah, it was amazing. I got told by a healer that once I was home, I was going to get offered a job and just take it. It will be good for communication. And at that point, I mean, I didn't even realize he was going to tell me the future. I was expecting him to do some sort of energy Reiki work on me. And so I was confused why he was talking to me and giving me predictions because I didn't think that was a psychic, I didn't think he was a psychic medium, but he was right. I did get home, I did get offered a job. And was it him predicting it or did I manifest it? I'm still not quite sure how much, what comes into it, but it did happen and I just said yes. And it was great for communication. And that turned out to be the editor job for Soul and Spirit magazine, which you guys had over there in the US. We lasted for 15 years and I came on and I edited it for the last 4.5 years before it folded last year. And it was the best job ever.
And led straight into you being able to write and publish your own book.
Exactly. It really laid the groundwork for the contents, for the education. I mean, I'd experienced spirituality growing up and then on those travels, but I hadn't formally ever written about it until I slid into this job and worked with all these amazing freelancers and columnists that we had, and the readers were just so amazing and so engaging. So it really laid the groundwork for me to be able to have my book baby now.
And this is very exciting.
Yeah, I'm very, very grateful.
And it's great to see that play out in your actual life and look back at what you manifested and the spiritual advisors that you talked to and see exactly what that led to. That's always exciting.
Yeah, I was able to really mix my professional spirituality with my personal spirituality and really consult people on what I was going through. And normally it was matters of the heart and the sacral chakra, two very stubborn chakras that the reader will see how I can budge energy in them. And yeah, I think a lot of people can commandeer that energy, even in their professional lives. Like we've all got professional skills transferable. If you've got a personal spirituality project, then have at it. Like go for it. You've got nothing to lose.
Do you have any advice other than, of course, reading the book? But for any beginners that are starting out on this sort of self-confidence journey, whether it's dating or whether it's, applying it to a professional life or something, do you have any advice for beginners?
Mm. Yeah, well, I would say, I mean, a lot of people say everything comes back down to self-love, like with the self-esteem, with manifestation, with just day-to-day happiness and empowerment. Everything comes back down to how we talk to ourselves and view ourselves. And chapter 5 in this book is very much the seminal chapter with self-work. But I would say it's very intimidating for beginners to look themselves in the eye in the mirror and start doing affirmations and chanting these statements like I am worth everything that I desire and I am made of pure gold and I am the queen of my own kingdom. It can be really intimidating for them to look themselves in the face and say that to themselves. So I would say start with a photo of yourself that you really, really like the look of yourself in. Kind of there's got to be a photo of yourself that you like, that you feel comfortable with. So if you just hold that photo rather than going straight to the mirror, just hold that photo and start doing affirmations from the book, the self-love affirmations. Even as simple as all is well, I'm worth everything I desire, then you'll start to feel a shift. I know everyone says consistency is what matters here, but if we've been on the dating apps, we already know that consistency is what matters because that's what helps keep a conversation flow going and it's what gets us invited on the first date. So if you're already winning and already doing the consistency on the apps, ask yourself why you can't commit to the consistency of an affirmation practice, even if it's just looking at a photo on your phone for 5 minutes every day, and start there.
That's an excellent advice for beginners and place to start because I do all sorts of witchy activities
Mm-hmm.
and still what you are talking about is a difficult practice for me.
Mm. Yeah, it really can be.
It's tough. And yeah, like looking it's I think one of the things that is incredibly helpful, but one of the things that feels like the most strange to us is to just stand and like face yourself and like look at yourself and
Mm.
like repeat those things, especially out loud, is one of those things that I know is very beneficial and I still struggle with.
Yeah, no, it's confronting. It's very vulnerable. We as humans do not like to be vulnerable. Um, but it really, really pays off. The energy that you put out there will come back to you with the healing and the self-love. And I would really just recommend even a week of it. I mean, we all struggle. Louise Hay herself struggled, and she was the self-love queen guru herself. She reported that she wanted to slap her own face at some points because she just felt so silly. But I feel like if we lean into the silliness and we kind of lean into the vulnerability, that's where the growth happens. I mean, by all means, for people who ask me how to do this, by all means, carry on as you are and see how it goes. But the meaning of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. If we just tweak, if we just play and make tiny tweaks to our little schedules and habits, then we can see a difference straight away. Just like when you say you have a great day, you're having a really lovely day with your friends and family apps, and you get loads more engagement and you get loads more compliments and loads more chats and fun. It's because your energy is shifted and the app is reflecting your energy. So everything is energy, even technology, and we can really commandeer that and use it to our advantage.
That is excellent advice. And I think that listeners are really going to get a lot out of this conversation and come away with a lot of tips of
I
things to
hope
do.
so.
But also,
Yeah.
really, I highly encourage you to check out the book because I think there is honestly something in there for everybody and such great information and tips and rituals and like I said, everything astrology and tarot and psychic readings, you've got everything in there. So I think a lot of people are going to find something in there that benefits them so much.
I hope so. Yeah, there's something in it for everyone. Even men, even guys, like you can read a few chapters or give a chapter to your partner to read, or I just want everyone to be engaging and really working on themselves. And in that, we can serve the universe with hiring our energy and our levels and kind of saving the world with our energy is my earnest kind of purpose.
I think that's a great purpose. That's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here today and chatting and sharing all of your wisdom and especially sharing your book because, like I said at the beginning, it's a very vulnerable topic to share about.
Yeah, I mean, it was vulnerable. It was hard work writing, but it's really I can see how worth it was going to be, and the fact that people are going to be helped with it was just what helped get me back to the desk every day because at points it was hell writing and really, really owning up to where I went wrong as well because it's not a blame game. I take responsibility for where I could have grown better and said better, communicated better. So yeah, I'm really glad it's going to be worth it.
Well, I appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much. And listeners, I am going to have everything linked. So if you want to check out the book for yourself, that will be in the show notes as always. And that is everything that I have for you this week. We will see you all next week.
Need even more witchcraft in your life? Subscribe to Witch Wednesdays on Patreon and YouTube for all types of exclusive bonus content like spells, recipes, book reviews, and more, or even order personalized tarot readings and spells. Be sure to follow on Instagram at Witch Wednesdays Podcast. And you can find all these links and more at witchwednesdays.com.